Hello and welcome to this episode of the World's Best Coaches series, the series where we go around the world and we interview the best of the best when it comes to business consulting and business coaching. Today, I am joined with Daniel Sweet, the owner and founder of Sweetview Partners. Daniel, I'm going to hand it over to you for a second just to kind of introduce yourself and what you do and what your business does.
Sure, that's fair. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. So what we do is Sweetview Partners acquires small businesses, and usually we're acquiring them from entrepreneurs, growing them up, attaching other businesses, and making a much more next stage type of company out of it. In the process of doing that, part of the other things that we do that got added on out of, well, both necessity for us and then other people had requested is actually some consulting in the form of helping small business owners grow their businesses, get them ready for that next stage. Basically, the stuff we do to our own companies. And then coaching other folks who are looking to acquire businesses and business owners who are looking to grow through acquisition. So all that grew out of our main activity. So it's never a dull moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty crazy industry. I have not met many people that do what you do and what your firm does. Tell me a little bit about the beginning of that journey. How on earth did you get into it?
So my background is actually in technology. I spent 27 years in the technology industry.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of folks I knew that went and started these little technology companies, technology services, break fix, help desk, all these littler companies.
Yeah.
And throughout my career, I kept seeing this happen over and over again, that they would form a company, they would get it to a good size, $1 to $2 million in revenue, give or take, and make nice profits because it's tech services. And then they would get bored because they're techs.
Yeah.
And they would have grown it to a certain point and said, okay, well, the challenge is gone. I don't like all this business administration stuff, so I'm just going to shut it down. And from the beginning, I said, there's got to be a way to kind of step in there. So later in my career, I had talked to some M&A guys, started doing some significant investigation as to how that whole industry worked. Because, I didn't have a few extra $1 million. So figured out how all that worked. And again, debt, equity, leverage, all that fun stuff. And started to do that as a retirement plan because I was still working for Mega Global Corp then. And then Mega Global Corp had a giant layoff, but with great severance plan. So that's when I decided I was jumping in with both feet, and it's been quite a ride. Definitely a fun experience, and now we do it for ourselves.
Awesome. How long have you been doing this?
About 6 years now.
Wow. Okay. So in terms of some of the first acquisitions or takeovers that you got involved with, tell me a bit about them. What were some of the hurdles that you came across?
So a lot of the challenges are figuring out where the money really is in the business. A lot of small business owners, they do books, they file taxes, they have a basic cash flow. But sometimes in smaller businesses, because there's less assistance than larger businesses, sometimes figuring out where that money really is and where it's really going is a little bit of a detective mystery. That we have to go in and figure out in order to make sure the company's really doing well, making money all year round. That's another thing, a lot of seasonality. And so we have to really do a lot of investigation into where that money really is and where it's really going to make sure we understand the business.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of, let's say I wanted to go into that space now, what would be some of the kind of steps that you would say, right, make sure you do this first or, research first? Well, what would you say?
So generally speaking, if you're going to go out and buy a business today, there's a ton of different courses out there that show you the process of buying a business.
Right.
I would say equally important is the process of learning how to read financial statements. That turns out to be vital to small business owners.
Yeah.
Also, if you have experience on a smaller scale running your own P&L, it doesn't have to be at your own business. It can be a division of a much larger business.
Yeah.
But understanding how the things you do affects a P&L really makes a difference. Knowing that skill is really vital to, well, the acquisitions being much less of a learning experience on the fly.
Yeah.
So I would say, like I say, there's I do coaching for a company called Epic. They do lots of they have the most uh, information laden course out there on buying a business, how to do it, how to
All
go
right.
about it, all that. They have a great program, but still, it would be helpful if you had some level of experience with the P&L before that, because that's, afterwards it's all yours, and you have to make all those decisions.
Absolutely, yes. It must be a big, scary jump, I mean, even if you've not owned your own business or if you already have, yeah, it's pretty crazy. The numbers are very important. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, it is the hardest thing. So I do some coaching of people that are looking to buy businesses,
Yeah.
and one of the hardest hurdles for them is that last piece where they're going to basically take on several $1 million worth of liability to make this thing run.
Yeah.
And on a spreadsheet, it all works out fine, but actually pulling that trigger is that is a sleepless night, is what that is.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, my goodness me. A lot of stress coming onto your shoulders. Yeah. So one of the big questions that we like to ask him, and what we've studied over our time working with business coaches and in that industry, is there's a lot of misconceptions around having someone keeping you accountable, being a business coach. Now, in your time, have you ever come across anything like that where convincing somebody that they do need someone to give them guidance and, that kind of structure?
So the the fact that they need guidance is often not in dispute. They would agree completely, especially the size businesses that I deal with, and
Yeah.
we help out startups,
Yeah.
so we do some coaching for them as well. So usually it's not, okay, I need help.
Yeah.
The question is, how much should that help cost? That's usually the break point, where, especially in smaller businesses where there's limited amounts of profits, how much of that profit am I willing to spend for advice? And honestly, my opinion is
Yeah.
a lot of that is triggered by the fact that, as you know, most of the people that pay for coaching, that pay for good advice from qualified people,
Yeah.
most of those don't use the advice. They like the advice. It's good to know these things, but they don't actually do them. So I understand the hesitation, but that's more often the problem is, okay, how much am I willing to pay for this? And I think there's something in the back of the mind saying, no, I'm not going to really do it.
Yeah, I think it comes down to accountability. It's you're not just paying for someone there to give you the guidance, give you the courses, give you the direction, but it's them setting you the goals that you were too afraid to set.
Mm-hmm.
It's the accountability when it comes to, have you done this yet? If we break down a next 6-month goal plan for your business in terms of financials, for example, we need to be able to look at that. Okay, so what am I doing every week that is aiming to, achieve that 6-month goal? And it's having someone there to just, keep on getting at you. What's your progress like? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's just like having a coach in exercise, weightlifting, that kind of thing. Their
Yeah.
job is there to be there and be really annoying so that you will go do the things you know you need to do.
No, exactly. And I think if you look at sports, for example, we like to use this term, this phrase a lot. But if you look at sports, you don't know a single person in professional sports that doesn't have a coach.
Right.
Why you as a business owner, why would you not have a coach? What you're doing right now is not going to get you there necessarily. It may do, but it may take a bit longer. I'm quoting Marshall Goldsmith there a little bit, but yeah, it's really, really important.
Well, and if you look at any of the companies that you idolize, right? If you admire some kind of company that has grown large, a tech startup, I
Yeah.
mean, up to Amazon and Microsoft, smaller, more immediate ones, OpenAI, the companies that are at that stage that you really admire, if you talk to their leaders, almost all of them have a coach as well.
Well, yeah.
Because again, they know that they'll get bogged down in the details and not focus on the stuff they really need to. And they need that external viewpoint to say, no, man, that stuff you're focusing on that belongs to somebody else. You need to be thinking bigger.
Exactly. I was speaking to a coach the other day who was telling me that he has a, vast history of coaching and working, and he was a top floor kind of CEO in very big companies back in his day. And he was saying the extent of what his coaching has become now is that he'll just get the random call from an ex-client or a client, and they just need to talk about a problem that they have, but more or less just voice it to that person. So he can just take it in, not necessarily give them a solution, but just let them talk about it for half an hour. And that phone call is more valuable than a sit down for 3 hours in some sense. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And the better coaches, and I'm not qualifying myself in that category, but the better coaches will, instead of answering questions, they'll just ask new ones and say, okay, so
Exactly.
what would happen if you did that? And what would happen if you did this? So you really know the answer all along, didn't you?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
just
So have you
reveal
ever,
what they've already known.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They usually, most of the time, they do already know the answer, but they just need someone to reaffirm that. Yeah, it's, yeah, 100% the case. So in terms of advice that you would give to maybe an aspiring business coach, somebody that's got a bit of, corporate experience, they're ready to step out and they want to give back, what would you advise to that kind of person?
So, from a business standpoint, that is, I assume that you're really good at the coaching and advising part.
Yeah,
But the reality is, coaching is a tough business because
yeah,
a lot of coaches don't want to look at it like a business.
yeah,
Um, and from a business standpoint, I was just telling a woman this the other day, is you need to find your niche that allows you to bring all of your experience to bear in the best place possible.
yeah,
So to say, I can coach any business anywhere all the time, probably it's not memorable if it is true. And with this woman, for instance, she really had a lot of great experience as a female executive in larger companies,
yeah,
and what it takes for a woman to get to that. And she was coaching a lot of different people, but the people that she both enjoyed a lot and seemed to get the most out of her coaching were these young female executives. I said, well, okay, why are you messing with anybody else? Said, well, I don't want to limit blah, blah, blah. I said, no, your value is this is who you are. This is what you know best. And your clients know it. So focus in, be the young female executive coach, and you're going to get way more business than you would just being the everything coach.
you would, yeah. And the clients see, once they see you're passionate about something, I think this is the case with every area of business ever. But people see people who are passionate about a product or a service or whatever. It's they, you're more likely to sell. I think in that way.
Exactly. And I mean, it's no difference in business buying. I'm always coaching people. Okay, you need to define your box. What is the type of business you want to buy? And in the beginning, they all say, I want any business this size. Well, you can't run any business that size. Let's be honest. Let's see what your experience says that you're good at, and that the people who are buying are also going to see that. So let's bring that out. We can all, there's thousands of us out there buying businesses, and we can all be in the market because we all address a different niche. We
Yeah,
have three specialty areas that we buy in, and that's it, because we know those are the areas that we have experience operating.
yeah,
If it's something else, I mean, there's somebody else for that, and we can help refer people. But that's
well,
not our area where we're going to have the highest success.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. Well, what would you say is some of the most popular types of businesses or industries that get bought more often? Would you say? I'm
Well, right
intrigued.
now, a lot of that is driven by fads, just like fashion or anything else.
Yeah,
So right now, there's a lot of businesses being bought, and the people with lots of money that are going into these niches are usually private equity.
right.
And their job is to buy up a lot of the small businesses, make it one big business, and
Yes.
then they can sell it to a major player in the industry
Yeah.
and make a lot of money on that. So right now, they're really into home services. They're really into car washes. They're really into what was the other one that's recent? They're really into, well, they're into tech businesses,
Of course. Yeah.
SaaS specifically.
Yeah.
Um, they should care more about what they are, but they don't. So those are three big areas where they're buying right now, and digital marketing agencies. There you go. And all of those are areas where the prices are going up because these people that are basically playing with other people's money are all competing for your local plumber, your local HVAC company, digital agency, and so those multiples go up, and that's how you tell popular is the multiples start to go up for no good reason other than there's a lot of people piling into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cody Sanchez, she's great at what she does,
Yeah.
and she says just simple, boring businesses. That's what she said. At some point, because this is what she did for a while, people decided that meant laundromats. And so people went buying crazy for laundromats. And right now, it's hard to find a laundromat for a good price where you can actually make money
Really.
because people decided, okay, boring business is great. What do you mean specifically? Well, again, what she said was, well, I bought a bunch of laundromats and it worked out well. So people say, okay, that's the easy answer. I'm doing that. So there's a lot of that as well.
It's crazy, isn't it, when a knowledgeable person, a thought leader in a market, they talk about something and the crowds follow. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if someone's listening to this right now and they're like, oh, I would like to get into the buying and selling of businesses, I'm sure it isn't an easy journey for anyone. It must be incredibly difficult. And how long does it typically take you on average to buy and sell a business? I know you're very experienced, but I'm sure that's probably a question that someone would ask if they're going into that.
Sure. So I'll give you two answers to that. There is a movement, if you want to call it, since the late 90s in MBA schools.
Right.
Of their graduates going out and buying a business and running it, because now that they're trained on everything business, they should be awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a group of those guys who are always going out and buying businesses. Now, for them, the ones that are successful, average is somewhere between 18 and 24 months for them to actually buy and be in a business.
Right.
Our average is less, partially because we have a much narrower focus.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is we need to eliminate as many businesses as possible.
Yeah.
Because the statistics are at least 100 businesses that you're interested in will have to be looked at before you acquire one.
Yeah.
And that's still roughly true.
Yeah.
So it can take us a year to do it. It can take less. So it depends on what comes our way. In statistics, it's the rule of large numbers. So over all the acquisitions, it'll be 1 in 100. But today, I could just luck on that one that's my fifth to look at for this category.
Yeah.
And it turns out great.
Yeah.
But on average, we assume it's going to take about a year all in.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. That's really, really interesting for anyone that is looking into that thing. I think, definitely go and check you guys out. And maybe, do you guys have some educational source stuff on your website and things that people can read it to?
So we have some videos out there, yes, and we're actually in the process of creating more of them. We've been finally talked into doing more marketing. I know. It's what I know what all these business owners are going through, because it's the same for us. I know I need to do that, but I haven't, and I don't have time. Yeah. So yes, we're going to be launching a how to sell your business set of videos.
Amazing.
Coming up soon. And we have done some coursework in how to buy businesses.
Yeah.
And we do some coaching on that as well. Honestly, the courses that are out there are pretty comprehensive in the information. So what we usually recommend is you should take one of the, again, I do coaching for Epic, so I'd say Epic. There are a lot out there.
Yeah.
I would say take one of those courses, learn all the basics, get up to speed.
Yeah.
And then that will be much more useful for me coaching you than you starting from scratch.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a lot of learning. That's, as a coach, this is expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pay for my time hourly versus a whole course that will be there forever.
Exactly. Yeah. So if an 18-year-old, they're in school, they're coming out of university, or they're going into university, and they're in a stage right now where they're getting that entrepreneurial seizure, they're thinking about it, what kind of advice would you give them right now in this kind of day and age? What do they need to do first before they go out and do it?
So actually, my best recommendation is for somebody in that situation, there has never been an easier time in history to create your own small business, and you get to decide the size, because you don't have to. It's not required that I employ 4 full-time people or anything. You can get fractional everything. You can get, overseas VAs. You can get all sorts of different things in little pieces now. So it's never been easier to start a business. So I would encourage people to jump in. Most of the lessons you learn as a small business person is things you never would have thought, things you didn't read about in books, things that you only find out through getting hit upside the head with it after you've jumped in. A little micro business is an awesome way to do that, especially if you're in college. Many colleges have lots of resources available to students to do just that. So you've got all of these resources, and professors are a great help for that. And you can launch something and fold it up in a week if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
You may remember Tim Ferriss?
Yes.
The 4-Hour Week guy?
Yeah.
What he does now when he's experimenting is he will create a website, and usually with an AI website generator, so he doesn't do much work on it.
Yeah.
He will create a website that describes the product or service he's thinking about getting into.
Right.
He launches it, he drives traffic to it, and he waits to see the response before he decides whether he's going to get in the business.
Really?
Yeah. It is a way to judge real customer sentiment, real time, which we've never had before.
No.
So you could launch the proto business. You can have a send more information form when it's ready.
Yeah.
And then you can see how many people care. And if a lot of people care, say, okay, that's the business I'll start to build.
Wow, that's amazing.
Nobody cares, you go, okay, flush that one. Let's move on to the next
one. Yeah. Mass data, mass research. That's fantastic. I love that. I didn't realize you did that. That's really cool. I'll go and check that out. Sure. Yeah. So in terms of, how the world is changing, I'm sure since you started this, it's changed quite a bit in the layout, the landscape, everything, with some of the shaping of the industry and how it's changing so rapidly at the moment. How do you guys kind of change yourselves to approach that?
So mostly what changes in our industry is the capital. So there's a lot of sources of capital, and there's always plenty out there for good deals. But you have to know what capital is buying what when. Right. We don't have our own fund, which that would be nice, but that's not right now.
Yeah.
So we fund each of our deals with other partners, whether that be just a regular bank, whether that be a family office, whether that be a hedge fund, whomever that is. We bring in people to fund deals, and the only reason they'll do our deals is because the steady part, we make sure the businesses that we're acquiring can pay for themselves.
Of course, yeah.
They have to be solidly profitable, solidly growable, very good businesses. And that part never changes. And then where you get the capital, how you get the capital, that is what changes and could change what types of business you can and can't buy today. Right. The beginning of SVB. SVB collapsed beginning of 23, right? And Silicon Valley Bank. And that had a lot of reverberations around the industry.
I bet, yeah.
A lot of people were pulling in going, oh, dear Lord, if a bank can collapse, what now?
Yeah.
And so everybody, the risk tolerance goes down. And so we were actually at the turn of that year working on 3 different acquisitions where the capital providers said, yeah, no, never mind, on all 3 of them, because the landscape changed.
Yeah, it's fear-driven results in that sense, yeah.
Exactly. So you have to be aware of what the capital out there is looking for, but there's always capital, and it's always looking to be placed. Creating that relationship with capital providers helps to understand the types of business that are viable today. Like one of the things we do is oil and gas services businesses. Well, a few years back, that became more difficult because several larger banks decided we don't want to do any investment in fossil fuels.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay. I mean, it seems short-sighted, but that's fine. That's their prerogative, right? So we now had fewer capital sources that were available to acquire those type of businesses. They're still the most profitable businesses per head in the world, but we had to modify how we got capital for them to people who are looking to provide capital.
Of course, yeah.
So it makes stuff changes all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. Yeah. Wild. So what's the plan for you guys in the future? Well, I like to ask, what's the 5-year goal, but what's short term, what's long term for you guys?
More. So what we're always looking to do is, and we've been looking to do from the beginning, is keep growing steadily.
Yeah.
Doing more acquisitions, and building just what every other small business owner at least should be doing, building our own little engine here. That will run itself. We're setting up processes and procedures. We're putting the right people in place when we can. And in the end, what we want is this machine that operates itself, that doesn't need my input on a regular basis. So the partners can focus on things that can grow new areas of business potentially, but the little machine keeps running on its own. Exactly. That's always what we're looking for. And we'll get there through more acquisitions. We're doing more acquisitions this year. We're doing more partnering this year with other people who are doing acquisitions. So that is all to meet that goal of building a machine that I can just be hands off with.
Well, most business owners' goals are usually to have a business that works without them. So they have the freedom to be with their families or go and do other ventures. If they are an entrepreneur, they want to go and do that. So, yes, very good. Very good. Awesome. Well, look, I like to end the interviews on a good educational question, but I tend to ask what kind of book you would recommend to somebody. So, what is a top read that you've read that was very influential in your kind of business knowledge?
So I go back a ways. And the first book I recommend is The Greatest Salesman on Earth in the World. It's an Og Mandino book from the 20s or 30s.
Okay.
It's a great place to start because it's really an allegory and it reveals a lot of what is still true today, what has always been true about
Yeah.
being in business, being a business person. And if you're the head of a business, turns out you're also a salesperson
Yeah. Of
because
course.
you've got to sell that business all the
Yeah.
time. So that's where I always start. And there's a lot of, there's the E Myth Revisited too. There is a ton of traction if you were looking to run a business.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So EOS does traction. There's a lot of marketing and sales books that I recommend just because people are going to end up in marketing sales, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
But I have a whole list actually.
Yeah.
But I always start there, and if somebody makes it through the Og Mandino book, which is really short, then they're ready for further light. Until then, I don't know how interested they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first business books I ever read was The E-Myth. My father gave it to me, and he was like, "Read this," and Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay."
Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great thing. You've got
Yeah,
to be ready for them.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I just finished a book last week that was incredible by Alex Hormozy. It's called $100 Million Offers. I would
Yep,
recommend that. It's a very interesting one for scaling. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, so it's really a marketing book written for non-marketers.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And what it suggests, if you follow his step-by-step pattern there, you'll be able to start like you're going to put together your micro business.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you get that book, you will be able to follow his pattern and get additional leads and get additional business and be able to grow it. Yeah,
Yeah.
great book.
Amazing, amazing. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on, Daniel. It's been fantastic, and I hope that it was really insightful for everyone listening and watching, because I've definitely walked away with some pretty amazing notes in my head. So,
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate you having me.